So the models are alive for Christian boys and girls. Conservatives don't mind walking out everywhere and say Christ is risen, Jesus is Lord. Liberals say in a restaurant, would you seat us in the back? We say table prayers. We don't want anybody to notice that. What we need to communicate to our boys and girls is there are a lot of models and a lot of alternatives. And every day, you need to decide how much you are of accommodator. And every day you need to ask, are there ways to be a resistor today? The third narrative that I want to talk about is the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is thought to be much later than the Persian period, but it is fiction that talks about Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians and the Persians, so it works the same way. In chapter 2, Daniel 2, does this sound familiar to you? Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and Nebuchadnezzar was harder than Pharaoh in Genesis 41 because he says to his magicians, not only do I want you to interpret the dream, I want you to tell me what the dream is. What did I dream? No psychotherapist will tell you that. And they said to him, my Lord, nobody on earth can do that. We can't tell you the dream. So he said, I'm going to kill all of you. And then he said, find me a Jew. Yeah, you got to get a Jew. So they brought Daniel in. Daniel, the really smart Jew. And he says, I want you to tell me the dream, and I want you to interpret it. And Daniel says, just a moment, I got to go pray. And he says, oh, God of heaven, give me wisdom. Then he got wisdom. So he tells him the dream. He says, you dreamed of a big statue, didn't you? Nebuchadnezzar said, golly, how'd you know that? Well, I'm a Jew, I just know that. And a big rock came, and it turned out that the statue of iron and bronze and silver had clay feet. That's where you get the phrase clay feet. So the rock is going to smash the clay feet, and the statue is going to fall down. And Nebuchadnezzar says, very interesting. What do you think that might mean? And Daniel says, well, I hate to tell you this, but it might mean that it's you, O king, and the big rock is God, and God's going to smash your feet, and you're going to fall down, deader than a doornail. The Jew told the truth to the empire. And it's like you're so relieved when you get a diagnosis from the doctor, at least I know what it is. And the story ends in chapter 2 by Nebuchadnezzar saying, thank you so much, and he promoted him to a higher office in the empire. Thank you, Jesus. Chapter 4, guess what? Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. See, the empire keeps getting these nightmares in the night. Do you wonder what Dick Cheney dreams about? When he gets his mind off oil prices? Same thing happens. And Daniel says, I don't want to tell you this dream. If I tell you this dream, you're going to kill me. No, he said, tell me. He said, well, what you did was you dreamed of a big tree. And the big tree had luxurious limbs and branches, and it was a place where birds could nest, and it was just wonderful. And the tree, you won't believe this, got cut down. It was cut down, says Daniel, until you learn you tree, that God holds sovereignty and God will give it to whom God will. You are not ultimate, but you live by God's grace. And it happened to Nebuchadnezzar that he was reduced to an animal, and he got long claws so they looked like Howard Hughes. And he ate grass like an animal. He was really low life. I wouldn't have thought it would have happened to Nebuchadnezzar. And then the narrative arrives at this point of saying, and he lived like a grass-eating animal until his reason returned, which means he had gone insane. When he got his sanity back, you know what he did? The most sane thing he could do was to sing doxologies to the God of heaven, acknowledging that I am penultimate and sovereignty belongs to this great God whom I may serve. And the chapter ends by Nebuchadnezzar saying, and the God of heaven, meaning the Jewish God, the God of heaven is a God of truth and justice, and no one can outflank him. So if Joseph is an accommodator and Esther is a resistor, I want to suggest, this may be too schematic, that Daniel is a flexible, agile guy who can be an accommodator and a resistor when he needs to be. And we may wonder how Daniel was able to operate with that kind of freedom. That's who we hope our baptized sons and daughters will become, the kind of agility that can move around the empire with fidelity. Well, I think the secret about how Daniel could do that is in chapter 1. In chapter 1, these 4 young Jewish men are recruited for civil service in the empire. They liked Jews. It's like people in Washington wanting Midwesterners. You can trust Midwesterners. You can trust Jews. So they had to have this training program for a number of years to qualify to serve the empire. And the training program had a food table like the football team at Ohio State. They ate steak every day. And Daniel said, I can't eat that. If I eat that, it will defile me. It will ruin my Jewishness. And the supervisor said, you got to eat it, because if you don't eat it, you'll look wimpy and they'll kill me. And Daniel says, let me try it for 10 days. So he drank Jewish water and ate Jewish vegetables. They already knew about good diets. For 10 days. At the end of 10 days, he was so healthy. And the supervisor said, okay, you can eat Jewish if you want to, because you're going to be all right. And at the end of the training period, Nebuchadnezzar came and pinned medals on all of them. And the narrator said that the 4 Jewish guys were the most handsome and the smartest and the most competent and the most effective and the most winsome. And they got high appointments in the empire. And they had not compromised their Jewishness. You know who the other 3 were? You do. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Here's something I'll bet you didn't know. chapter 1 says their real names were Mishael, Azariah, and Micaiah, I think the other one is. They had Jewish names. The empire renamed them with imperial names because the empire did not want them to have Jewish names and did not want them to have Jewish identity. So it is interesting that we don't know the Jewish names. We know the imperial names, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and I hear the word of the Lord. So the way I read chapter 1 is that Daniel and his three friends, Daniel also had an imperial name, Sheshbazzar. The reason that Daniel had this freedom is that he had a double identity. He knew when to be a Babylonian and when to be a Jew. So I imagine Daniel coming to church every Sunday to remember his baptismal name because he was talked out of it all week. Because all week he was named by the empire as a producer or as a consumer or whatever the empire wants you to be. And I am led to believe that Daniel went through the week saying secretly to Nebuchadnezzar, you may think I'm a guy of the empire. I'm not. I'm never going to belong to the empire because I haven't forgotten my Jewish name. There is one place in chapter 4 where Daniel's Jewishness comes out. After he's told him about the tree that's going to be cut down, Nebuchadnezzar must have asked him, it's not in the text, Nebuchadnezzar must have asked him, what do you think I ought to do? And Daniel says to the empire, you need to show mercy and justice to the oppressed. It's so Jewish. It's so covenantal. It's so neighborly. And Nebuchadnezzar must have flinched. It'd been a long time since Nebuchadnezzar had thought about the oppressed. It's been a long time since Nebuchadnezzar thought about mercy or justice. Because empires don't think that way. Empires do not want to have health care or housing or jobs or education for the poor because they are expendable. And Daniel says as a Jew to the empire, if you want to get over your nightmare, you better do these Jewish things.